This has been requested about 15 plus times, so let me explain to you why none of these cars are supercars. Previously, I made a video talking about the 4 tiers of sports cars. Now this is the 3 tiers of supercars. People were upset because they said a C8 Stingray and something like a Porsche 911, specifically the Turbo S, was a supercar, and it's absolutely not. Lines have been blurred over the last few years, so I get why it might seem like it's a supercar, but it's not. A 911 Turbo S, or even like a GT3 RS, shares trim levels with base model cars that are not supercars. So how can this be a supercar when a $60,000, $70,000 variant exists with a much more mild engine? Same thing goes for this. Just because a BMW M5 is faster than 99% of every car on the road does not make it a supercar. 1, it's a mid-size sedan. 2, it's a luxury vehicle. And 3, it's just a performance car. And the same thing with the Model S Plaid. It has trim variants that are very slow. The moral of the story is a supercar needs to be exotic in nature. That doesn't mean always every exotic car is going to be a supercar, but every supercar is always an exotic car. Let me give you something else to think about. Just because like brands like Hyundai or Kia have elevated their interiors and use leather and use aluminum and use Alcantara, does that make it a luxury vehicle? In what world would them or Toyota be a luxury vehicle? A lot of you like to argue that Lexus is not even a luxury vehicle, which doesn't even make sense, but besides that point, just because a car is extremely fast does not make it a supercar. Because at the end of the day, a BMW M5, a huge boat, will beat some supercars. And when it comes to cars like an Acura NSX, for example, that is absolutely a supercar. Like a tier 1. And before anybody says, oh, well, Audi R8 shared trim levels with a V8 variant, so does it mean it's not a supercar? Please use common sense. The base model of the car is already a supercar, so any other variants of it would also be a supercar. It's like when you're looking at Bugattis or you're looking at Ferraris or Lamborghinis that have like 20 trim levels. The base model is still a supercar. The same is not said for a Corvette or a Porsche or any other sports car. Does that make sense? Without getting too complicated, a lot of the entry level or cheaper variants of supercars from like Ferrari or Lamborghini, even McLaren, are going to be like tier 1 supercars. This is a pretty broad spectrum, just for clarification. Tier 2 supercars are going to be a lot of hybrid engines mostly, so a lot more modern supercars. Also cars that have groundbreaking speed, power, engine setup, innovation, or design. These are basically like next generation supercars. And tier 3 are going to be hypercars. Hypercars, in the most basic term, are going to be the top 1% of supercars. That's the best way to look at it. And there is like an uncharted tier 4 that we haven't really seen here, maybe a little bit, like the Rimac Nevera, this Venom F5, the AMG 1. Cars that are kind of like breaking the rules of what we've seen from supercars in the past. Cars that are so advanced in engineering, it almost makes them impossible to drive. All these uncharted tier 4 cars are going to be extremely limited, extremely expensive, so not very common. So that's why it's not really a real